On today's program, we travel to Tulsa, Oklahoma to visit the Linnaeus Teaching Garden with former host Steve Owens and Director of Horticulture at Linnaeus, Barry Fugit. Back in Stillwater, Extension Turfgrass Specialist Dennis Martin has steps to establish a simulated shortgrass prairie. Barbara Brown prepares a summer garden salad, and we have gardening tips for October. Oklahoma Gardening is a production of the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the land grant mission of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University, dedicated to improving the quality of life of the citizens of Oklahoma through research-based information. Underwriting assistance is provided by TLC, Oklahoma's leading garden center, Southwood Landscape and Nursery, Tulsa's source for great gardens, and the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, helping to keep Oklahoma green and growing.
We're here in Tulsa at a gem of a public garden known as the Linnaeus Garden. And here to tell us a little bit about it is the Director of Horticulture, Mr. Barry Fugit. Hey Barry, welcome back to the show.
I am so glad to get you back in this garden. Good to have you.
It's good to be here, and it looks awesome, I must say. I've been here a few times. Every time I come out, it looks great. But the garden here, Barry, when did it get its start? And just tell us a little bit about what goes on here at the Linnaeus Garden.
Well, it's just our baby. It's a jewel, and it started 9 years ago. And it is the paradigm here is a well-trained volunteers, and we have close to 300 now. We train each fall, and then we have industry from coast to coast, and you have been a blessing to us as well with plant materials. So everything you walk up and see, everything you stand on at the Linnaeus Garden is a donation from somebody, which is amazing, and all the labor is volunteer labor, and they've been able to keep it just looking like a little paradise here. But we're 9 years old, celebrated our 9th anniversary in June, and big things are continuing to happen.
Still going strong and expanding a little bit. And the name Linnaeus, where does that come from?
He is, well, we like to call him the father of botany, but he was an incredible guy. For viewers, just Google the name Carl Linnaeus and you'll get up thousands and thousands of possible hits. And we just felt like in America they didn't know enough about him. He was a Swedish guy, born in the 1700s, but we named plants by his system, the binomial nomenclature, genus, species, and what have you. So he was a minister, he was a doctor, he was an environmentalist, he was a botanist, he was so many things. And it's said of him or written about him that he never met a student that he didn't take under his arm and share with him about horticulture and gardening. So we thought it was a perfect name for the garden.
Sounds like a wonderful person, and you even had a statue back here in his honor and likeness. 1,000-pound
bronze of Carl Linnaeus standing back here in his finery of the 1700s. We try to get him pictured in his 50s when he was at the height of his notoriety in Europe.
Sure.
And a local artisan did the sculpture itself, and you can see some tiles behind him of native plants for Oklahoma, and there he is just greeting you as you come up the walk. He's a lecturer, so he's got his notebook in one hand and he's holding Gaillardia, the state wildflower, in the other. So
doing his thing.
Doing his thing, absolutely.
Okay, well this walkway certainly is impressive. This is part of Woodward Park.
It is.
And of course I used to work here years ago as a gardener for the city park department. And
so you really remember when you saw this when it was nothing like this, right?
Yeah, you guys have really planted it and improved it, and it looks incredible. Just looking at some of the plants along the walk here, we got this lovely white myrtle. Can you tell us which one that is?
This is a United States Department of Agriculture release back in the early 90s, I think it is, but it's called Acoma, named after an Indian tribe. So there's a whole series of crepe myrtles that were named after American Indian tribes.
Okay, I used to say Acoma, but Acoma. sounds a little better.
I used to say Acoma too until a Native American came up to me and said the correct pronunciation is Acoma.
All right.
Indeed.
Good to learn something.
Exactly.
And you know, these really old eastern red cedars here have so much character, and I know you guys like limbed those up, pruned them, cleaned them up. But what do you do if one of them dies?
What we do is what you're looking at right there. One of them did die, and our volunteers are such, I like to call them the Horticulture Marine Corps. They just take ownership of every plant out here. So when this tree died, they came to me and said, if we could raise the money, could we have the chainsaw sculptor come along, Mr. Cause, and do a tree of discovery? And so absolutely. So they raised all the money to have that done. And now children love walking around that, and we just asked them to identify all the little critters that are staring at them out from the tree, including our state bird up there, the scissortail.
That is wonderful.
Yeah.
And the weeping tree back here on the left?
That's a weeping purple redbud, and just a fantastic. We're going to allow that plant to just continue to grow. It'll never get any taller. It's a grafted plant, but the branches are all pendulous and weeping, and I have seen these to where they literally trailed over walls and what have you.
Wow.
And that's what's beginning to happen. You can see there several of the branches are going out over the ground there to make a waterfall effect for, of all things, a redbud.
Very nice accent plant.
Yes,
well,
it is.
Let's take a look at some of the other areas of the Linnaeus Garden. Barry, another thing I really like about the Linnaeus Garden is the plant trials that you guys do out here. And looks like you got a really good heat-tolerant selection of periwinkles here.
We have. Last year we dedicated this little section of the garden to lantana varieties, and the public seemed to enjoy that. This year it's vinca or periwinkle, and there's so many varieties, and the breeding work going on to improve them, to dwarf them, to make them bigger, and even more floriferous than they've probably ever been.
And
so
disease resistance.
Disease resistance is being worked into it, so we're kind of, and the public has really embraced these, and so hopefully we get people excited about great plants, and then they go to retail nurseries and to guys like yourself and buy them. We don't compete or in any way with the nursery industry. We just ask them to donate so that we can show the public of what, you know, some neat things that we can grow here in Oklahoma.
Sure.
But boy, there's some hot new varieties indeed for vinca today.
They've come a long way. I mean,
They
just
have.
from the 20 years ago or so, just the varieties that were available and the size of the flowers, and this is a really unique one right here.
That is. I'm going to be using that next year in some hanging back. My wife fell in love with that. Just the colors, you know, it just really spoke to her. But I kind of like some of these dwarf varieties that are very thick and compact and for ground cover purposes, and obviously for trailing and urn, they would be great for that as well. But some neat new stuff indeed.
Well, Barry, I think it is amazing the amount of support you guys get for this garden.
Well, it is, Steve, and in fact, there was no way to do this Linnaeus Teaching Garden without the public getting involved, and obviously a lot of volunteers. But industry, this is as much an industry garden as it is anything, because every plant, again, you see at Linnaeus, some industry personnel or nursery around the country is donating it for us to show and tell, and to build hopefully to build a demand for it. But we're just looking for great plants. And then we've got great gardeners who like to grow them. But yeah, we're standing on the cool spot, temperature-wise.
It does feel nice here.
It does, underneath these conifers. But it gives you kind of a view of the garden and how it's sectioned into room effect. Linnaeus is quintessentially a classroom. It's a display garden. So it's an opportunity for us to do the displaying for guys like you and industry across the country. And when you arrange it like this, it can be pretty attractive as well.
You guys do have some amazing plants here, and the hardscape, just all this other garden area is just, it is incredible. And the gardens as they stand now have pretty much occupied the same footprint for the last 9 years, but you guys are getting ready to do a little bit of expansion. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, some exciting things are happening. We had a donor step up, and we are in the last stages of building a new classroom for Linnaeus so that we'll be able to do small group training of 50 to 60, 75 people at a time. And our new class 13 that's about to be selected to become a Linnaeus garden, we'll be training them in our new classroom. So we're so excited about that. And then I think you saw as you came in this terrace garden up there that a good deal of donor money has been spent on again. We're so excited because it's going to become an all-American selection display garden directly across the street from Linnaeus. So yeah, great things are happening.
Okay, and that area was actually part of the Rose Garden Terrace. that has been here at Woodward Park since the 1930s.
Absolutely. For Tulsa, it has historic interest. It goes back to the Roosevelt era in 1932-33, when the Great Depression was going on, and President Roosevelt put millions of men to work in this country, and that garden was built at that time with those funds. So we're taking the top terrace and totally reworking it and bringing it, modernizing it, and then again going to turn it into not only something beautiful, but a teaching opportunity as well.
Okay, I can't wait to see that. Those roses surrounded by those All-American selection plants and some of those other things.
It should be special.
Yeah. Well, Barry, it's always a pleasure to come and see the Linnaeus Garden. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Steve. Come back often.
Hi, I'm Janine Campbell. I'm an ambassador at the Botanic Garden. This is my 11th year as an ambassador, and I'm here with your hort tips for the month of October. The turf grass tips for the month of October are: you can continue to replant or establish cool season lawns like fescue. The mowing height for fescue should be lowered to approximately 2.5 inches for fall and winter cutting. Fertilize your cool season grasses the 1st of October with a complete fertilizer at the rate of 1 to 1.5 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. Broadleaf weeds like dandelions can be easily controlled during October.
Today we're at the simulated shortgrass prairie at the Oklahoma Botanic Garden. We're going to talk about some concepts that can lead to successful renovation from introduced grass areas into native lawns or simulated shortgrass prairies. There's some very important steps that are involved with this process. The most important thing is to not rush the overall process, but to go through a systematic plan and use inspection and proofing in order to determine whether it's proper to go to the next step. In this area, the concept was to kill out the area of crabgrass and Bermuda grass and convert it over time to a simulated shortgrass prairie. The steps involved are to first kill out the existing vegetation and then fallow the area for a time period, possibly using cover crops to reduce soil erosion and build organic matter in the soil, and then upon timely inspection and determination that we've killed out the invasive species, to move forward with establishment. Now, this process at this site met with limited success. The reason was that the process was, the area was undertaken, it was fairly large, and also it could have been broken up into much smaller segments, so that's an important part of the process. Also, we have to allow enough time to kill out Bermuda grass rhizomes and the very large amount of seed that's present in the soil. I generally suggest starting these renovation efforts in June, first mowing the area very short, also keeping it irrigated. What we try to do there is to flush the reserves in the Bermuda rhizomes to get a lot of shoot growth, and also flush the seed in the soil to get them to germinate. We want to reduce drought stress so that when we come in with that high rate of glyphosate, we want it to be taken up by both the weed seedlings and also the Bermuda grass present, and for it to translocate throughout the plant. Following our Roundup applications, or glyphosate applications, we want to allow about 7 to 10 days before we do a tillage of the area to approximately a 4-inch depth. The purpose of the tillage is to break up the rhizomes and force the dormant lateral buds on the rhizomes to break dormancy, as well as to flush additional weed seed from the soil and get it to germinate as well. After approximately 2 weeks of weed seed growth or Bermuda rhizome growth, we want to come back in and respray the area either with a backpack using glyphosate spot spray or perhaps even a broadcast application. You do have to save your total yearly rate of glyphosate and make sure that you've allowed yourself enough to use for your second application. After your second application, we can do another retillage, or we can do a spot spray, or a combination of both. In the end though, this process takes a minimum of about 18 months. Sometimes we can get by with 10 months, but we will have to use oftentimes a cover crop. One thing that's important to realize when we use a cover crop is what we use to reduce soil erosion and as a cover crop now could possibly become a weed later, so we have to choose very closely. One of my favorite cover crops is to use wheat, a winter annual, which dies out when we mow it short in late spring or early summer, or it dies out from heat and drought. Very seldom does wheat become a problem for us later in the process. So it's very affordable, it's very vigorous, and it also helps to reduce soil erosion and also helps build organic matter in the soil. Usually during the second year of the process, after proper proofing of a 3 to 4 week time period and window where we've kept the soil moist during the summer, we can determine if we've got a lot of weed seed growth, more germination of weed seed, if we've properly killed out Bermuda grass rhizomes or not. Oftentimes we'll have to dig into the soil and make sure that we can't find live white Bermuda grass rhizomes. Only after we've proofed and inspected the site and that we're satisfied that we've killed out those invasive species can we move forward with the next stage. That can be involving establishment of vegetative prepared plugs of native grasses, or seeding buffalo grass or blue grama or side oats grama or other such mixes. I usually discourage coming in with broadleaf forbs and grasses in the second year, because sometimes we'll see that we've got some escaped weed problems, and if we come in with a mix of both desirable broadleaves and desirable grasses, we really limit our palette of herbicide selections so that we can go and clean up the area. So I like to look at the overall process as being a 3 to 5 year process before we develop a complex shortgrass prairie that contains both native shortgrasses and the various broadleaf forbs that are a part of the shortgrass prairie. So as you think about renovating from an introduced lawn species like Bermuda grass to maybe a native lawn or your own simulated shortgrass prairie, remember, don't rush the process. Allow proofing at each stage to make sure that you've gotten rid of the invasive species. Pick a cover crop that won't later become a weed problem for you. And then when you do come in with your desired species, keep it simple at first, just to further proof that you've gotten rid of your serious weed problems, and then you're allowed to introduce a more complex system over time of not only additional grasses but also additional broadleaf plant species. If you'll follow these steps, you'll be assured of having better success in the long run.
Your tips for October for ornamentals: plant your cool season annuals like pansies, ornamental cabbage or kale, snapdragons, and dusty miller when temperatures begin to cool. Begin planting your spring flowering bulbs like tulips, hyacinths, crocus, and daffodils. Peonies, daylilies, and other spring flowering perennials should be divided or planted now. Dig and store perennials like cannas, dahlias, and caladiums in a cool, dry location. Purchase your trees from the nurseries and garden centers at this time to select the fall color you prefer. Plant your container-grown trees and shrubs this month.
Today I'm doing a summer garden salad, and I've been doing a lot of salads lately, but that's because all the great produce comes off the garden at the same time or near the same time, and so you have all these wonderful things to work with. What's better than eating them in their pristine state? So That's what we're doing today. I'm starting with 4 tomatoes. You can use whatever tomatoes you're growing. If you happen to have heritage tomatoes, that'd be great. Now keep in mind that this is a salad, and the original recipe said it was going to make 6 servings. Well, when I made it the first time, it was way more than 6. So adjust based on what your number of people you're going to want to serve. This one doesn't hold exceptionally well. Parts of it do and parts of it don't. So we're starting with 4 medium-sized tomatoes, about this size, will work. If you've got larger ones, go for fewer, smaller ones go for more. I'm also going to use 2 cucumbers. Now the cucumbers are variable. These are slicing cucumbers, and so you can see that I've seeded some of them. I peeled them all, and some of them I didn't seed. The reason being that these were very small seeds, not going to be a bother. The other one had pretty big seeds, and they were very juicy as a result, and so when I cut them open, we got a lot of water coming out. So I just decided to take that out so that I wouldn't dilute my dressing as we add the ingredients for that. So 2 cucumbers. I've also got 1 medium bell pepper. Now bell peppers come, the recipe called for 1 bell pepper. And they come in so many sizes that I actually used probably 3/4 of one for this because it was a really big one. If yours are smaller, again, be flexible with the recipe, work with the ingredients that you have. And then 1 medium sweet onion. Now I like sweet onion for this because I think it gives a little bit better flavor. If you don't have sweet onion, what you can do is slice a yellow onion, or if you've got a red onion that's a little too, got too much bite to it, soak it in water for about 15 or 20 minutes in ice water, and some of that tang or bite will go into the water and leave you, when you drain it really well, with something that's a lot better for a salad. All right, next ingredient I'm putting in, I've got 6 to 12 olives. This is more of a Greek type of salad, so I'm using a Kalamata olive, but whatever olive you've got, again, we're going with flexibility here. Now we're going to get the dressing ready. I've got 1/2 cup of olive oil, and I'm using full strength here because this is a Greek salad, and I'm got the feta, and I'm going to add some feta, and we've already got the Greek olives, so we'll go with full strength olive oil. I'm going to add 1/4 of a teaspoon of kosher salt, 1/4 of a cup of white wine vinegar, and 1/2 teaspoon of dry mustard. Now, one of the things that happens at my house and in my office is that I don't use a lot of dry mustard, and so it may tend to cake up a little bit. Before you add it, see if you can get any of that caking out. I'm doing it with a whisk and a bowl. Another good alternative for this one, particularly if you've got kids or a partner who is just standing around just watching, is to put this in a jar with a nice tight-fitting lid and let them shake it together. The mustard's acting as our emulsifier. It's not going to be a permanent emulsion. It's going to come back out again later, so don't worry about it at this point. Get it as good as you can. If when it comes apart later, there's not a lot you can do. This is going to get poured over our salad. And then you're going to toss the salad. Now this is why this one doesn't keep as well. This is very similar to a lot of other marinated salads that you can make ahead, put them in the refrigerator for several hours or a few days, and get a head start on dinner. This one, however, because of the tomatoes, when you add the acid to it and the oil, the tomatoes tend to lose some of their liquid. They tend to start getting mushy. So this one is one that you need to make much closer to the time you're actually going to be using it. Once you get those ingredients fairly well blended together, this one's pretty much ready to serve. And I forgot to bring my serving plate, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave it in here. And the last thing that we're going to do is add some feta cheese to it. And this is just going to get sprinkled over the top. Now this you do right before you're ready to serve, because if you do it too early on, it also tends to get kind of mushy and slimy and just doesn't give you the punch that you might like otherwise. So you can actually put this on at the plate after it's already plated and let people put their own on in case you have some people who don't like it very well. And then it makes a great summer salad. Can almost be a lunch. I hope you'll give this one a try. It's Summer Garden Salad for Oklahoma Gardening. I'm Barbara Brown.
Horticultural tips for the month of October for your fruits and vegetables. Number 1, dig your sweet potatoes and harvest your pumpkins and winter squash. Remove the green fruit from tomato plants when the frost threatens. There's still time to plant radishes and mustard in the fall garden. And last, remove all disease and insect-infested debris from the garden to prevent overwintering of various garden pests. Those were your tips for the month of October. Now don't forget that we still have open houses the first and third Saturday of October and the first week Saturday in November. Please come out. The ambassadors will be on hand to show you around, to tour, answer questions, and we look forward to seeing you.
Next week, we'll be joined by former host Brenda Sanders on a behind-the-scenes preview of some of the gardens that will be featured on the Oklahoma Horticultural Society's garden tour for connoisseurs. And be sure to mark your calendar for October 17th for the actual tour, because we are sure that after seeing the preview, you won't want to miss it. Barbara Brown will also join us for another tasty recipe, so join us then for more TV You'll Grow to Love. To find out more information about show topics, as well as recipes, videos, articles, fact sheets, and other resources, including a directory of local extension offices, be sure and visit our website, oklahomagardening.okstate.edu. And we always have great information, answers to questions, photos, and gardening discussions on your favorite social media as well. Join in on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find this entire show and other recent shows, as well as individual segments on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. And tune in to our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel to watch segments from previous hosts. Oklahoma Gardening is produced by the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University. The Botanic Garden at OSU is home to our studio gardens, and we encourage you to come visit this beautiful Stillwater jewel. We wish to thank our generous underwriters, TLC Garden Centers, Southwood Landscape and Garden Center, and the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry. Additional support is provided by Pond Pro Shops, Greenleaf Nursery and the Garden Debut Plants, and the Oklahoma Horticultural Society.